Hi, this is actually the second time I attempt to record this video. The first time I wasn't like recording at all, and it was just me talking to no one for 1 hour, which is really sad and pathetic, but it's fine. What is this video? This is just me going in a rant, a little take in what I think Zhin is right now, what the heart and soul of Zhin is right now. What I think is viable for patch 3.3 right now currently. What I think is also not viable, choices of talents, cards, just facts and things you should know about Zhin. Why am I making this video? Well, first of all, I really like the champion. I've checked out recently and almost no one talks about him. And even if they do, they just show gameplay. The pro channels in which they post replays as videos and just post the replays, don't talk about them that much. So I feel like I really need to make this video. Second reason I ended up doing this video is because there's this guy called Max Zero Fun. His YouTube channel is called Enjoying Paladins. I highly encourage you to check him out. He changed my mind in many aspects of this game. So yeah, good stuff. Check him out. Link is in the description below. So Zhin, let's get down on it. I want to get this out of the way real quick. Smolder, heal for 15% of your maximal health per second while using below. This is terrible. Don't run it. In its entirety, 2 seconds. That equates to 15% of your maximum health. That equates to 600 HP every 15 seconds. That is pretty terrible. This is pretty lackluster early game. Late game it gains some value because it is non-colorizable. It really isn't good. Besides, you need 2 specific cards to make this work, and even then it is pretty terrible. I will explain them in a bit, but let's just move on. Guillotine Spy deals 25% of its target's maximum health with each hit, and increases your ultimate charge rate by 15%. So I think this talent is pretty overrated. Let's check it out right now. Look at Cassie. She has a health pool of 2,200 damage, which is average for most champions that are squishes. Now, check out how it works. That's basically 4 slashes, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's not flat damage; it's percentage damage, which is pretty nice. But here's my take on it. Tanks right now are pretty weak. Only about 4 or 5 tanks can carry the game. Not as pacemakers, not as outlivers. I mean, people that can stall the point, I guess. But as damagers. If you use this with a tank, you're not doing yourself any favors. Yeah, it's a 4v5. That is, if you can kill someone and not die immediately. With regular ults, you can do the same. The only difference is that you don't ult tanks. You would rather ult a damager, a flanker, or a support, because those 3 roles can come back from getting a teammate deleted. If you ult the tank, the rest of the team can still come back. Even if they're not capping, they can still come back in the long run. If you kill any of those 3 roles, it is noticeably harder for the team to come back. Even if they're capping, they'll eventually lose the role in the long term. Before the support, the damager, or the flanker responds, they just can't respond to it. Ulting the tanks isn't the answer right now. Also, many people will try to tell you that guillotine is very useful because it takes 1 less slash to kill someone, and that is about 0.3 seconds, I believe, even less probably. And no, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. Like, yeah, look at this. compared to normal ult. This guy is still alive. One hit. Also, people for some reason seem to forget you can do this. Also, people for some reason seem to forget you can do this. But yeah, people seem to forget you can do this. You don't need to ult someone when they're full health. My point is this: why do you run guillotine when you can just run regular spite? It's not like it's miles better than regular spite. Yeah, you get percentage damage. You also get to kill people a little bit faster. Haven doesn't affect it as much, so you don't get as countered in the late game. But still, it's just putting a giant flag in yourself saying they're not going to kill you. Ulting someone with guillotine as opposed to not using guillotine takes the same amount of danger, nearly at the same amount of danger as not running it. There's no reason to run it. You basically are paying for a talent that does essentially 200 damage, not even 200, because you can just do this right or after ulting instead of just slashing someone in their face. You can do something like this. It is risky. You can still get gunned down pretty easily, but it is something you can keep in mind. Now there are lesser reasons why I would run Yomi instead of guillotine almost every single time. One of those lesser reasons happens to be one of the features of the talent, the 15% increase on the ultimate charge rate. Now, I counted all of them. I counted how many shots it takes you to build the ultimate. Just going light, and heavy swing, and not taking into account finishing off low targets with low numbers, because that would be unfair. And I try to not take too much time in between shots. Here are the results. Guillotine actually takes 26 shots. Yomi takes 27, and Smolder takes 29. The part of the ultimate increases just for one shot, and honestly, Smolder isn't even that far off. I don't think that's worth running. That doesn't mean anything at all. In a real scenario, that's meaningless. Also, you get diminishing returns by buying morale boost while running guillotine, because it kicks in at 30%. So basically, if you go higher than morale boost 2, you're getting diminishing returns no matter what. Now Yomi, it's basically 100 damage every 1.7 seconds. Yeah, it says, the description of the attack says every 2 seconds, but in reality it's 1.7 seconds or so, a little less, a little more. Time it yourself and you realize the description is wrong. 150 damage every 1.7 seconds is not great. I will say this: all 3 talents for Zhin right now are pretty mediocre, but Zhin is definitely the most impactful one. For the people that tell you guillotine is better because Yomi doesn't do anything, it takes the same amount of hits to kill a squishy. Well, look at this. 5 hits, alright. Five hits as well. Okay, so are they right? No, they're wrong. They are very wrong. One more hit. Now Yomi. One less hit. Now this doesn't make any difference, because champions almost always have more than what their health bar might suggest, because they always have some sort of DR, damage reduction, sustain, getting healed by someone. Easy fights as this almost never happen, so it makes even more sense, because fights will take even longer with Vanilla Zhin with the 700 damage swing. Yeah, Yomi was put into the base kit, at least the piercing and uh, and range effect, but still 150 every 1.7 seconds is noticeable enough to run every situation. I will expand this by looking at the cards, at the card selection. Let's look at each card one by one. Embers. This card is bad because you regenerate 2 ammo after billowing, which is not dynamic at all, and you basically have to billow to get the effect. 2 ammo is pretty nice. Give me a second to silence this because it's pretty annoying. Getting 2 ammo every 15 seconds is not worth it. Fan the Flames, this card is overrated. You should never run this card outside of Smolder, which is the reason that the talent can be good, I guess. Not really good, but decent, I guess. Playable. The only way to make Smolder work is by chaining kills and getting this effect. That's the only way to make it work. If you run this in the other 2 talents, you're not making your life easier. 3 seconds per level is pretty nice for an ability that is in a 15-second cooldown, right? Right? Wrong. Below right now is the least important part of his kit. It's basically a ghost walk. It's a glorified ghost walk. The difference is you can still chain abilities like whirl and counter and even ult, but still it's a glorified ghost walk. You're locked 2 seconds not doing anything. You're stuck not doing anything. You're not making space. You're not going ahead. You're not being aggressive. You're not getting in people's faces. You're not getting in and out. You're not doing damage. You're limiting yourself to having a dead card in your loadouts that, even if it gives value, is it really giving you value? It is making you do less DPS. That's the reality of this card. This card says reduce the cooldown of below by 20% after getting a killing blow, and reduce your damage potential significantly. That's what this card is. Now, this card, Hideout, couples well enough with this card, but still you need to get a kill to get the effect, and by the time you get kills, you're already snowballing, and that doesn't mean it's good. This card is okay too. It's not great. It's good, but you can still get predicted. If you get caught out in the middle of the battlefield, you're pretty much dead because your opponents, good opponents, will time this correctly, will time their shots correctly to hit you after below ends and you start whirling. It really depends in a pop-off card, and that's just not value. Up in Smoke, this card is bad because this card exists. That's really it. If you're running this card, you're synergizing it with these 2 cards, and that is not good. That is pretty bad because these 2 cards are significantly worse than these 4. Blade Dancer, increase the travel distance of whirl by 8%. This card is nearly a must in every Zhin deck. Why? Because 50 units isn't enough to get you where you want to go most of the time. It makes you go farther from ledges, it makes you cross greater distances, and therefore makes you stay out of combat less time because it takes you faster. This also helps you to reach people you wouldn't otherwise with 50 units, which is the base one. For example, Leanne has a 30 unit base distance for her mobility, but she doesn't need 50 like Zhin because she doesn't need to get up close and personal. Zhin has to. 50 units isn't enough sometimes. This card is pretty nice. Fuel for the Fire, this card used to be a library card, which was pretty terrible as well. This card was okay, I guess, if you were to combo this with other live rip sources to cap at 30% and not get diminishing returns as a filler. Even then it wasn't good. Right now this card is terrible because this card exists, and besides, why do you need movement speed after whirling? Kindling, generate 1 ammo after whirling. This card is good. Problem is I don't run it. Why? I will touch in a bit why I don't think you need ammo cards on Zhin, but definitely this card can be good. Has the potential to give you 2 to 3 ammo for each magazine. So yeah, definitely something I would see runnable as a one pointer instead of maybe this one or this one or this one. I mean, wildfire. This card is the definition of the Beyblade meme decks. This card is terrible. Please don't run it. Yeah, if you hit someone, if you hit two people at once, you get 5 seconds off. But what if you don't? You get 2.5 seconds, which is terrible. Malice. Now this card is actually pretty good. Even if you think I'm joking, I'm not joking. This card is pretty good. Why? Because let's say you run this card at 2. Nice. So that means you're essentially. This doesn't mean you do more DPS per se, because that's not the point. You still have to fire 9 shots to get the effective use out of this card, because reloading mid battle is doing less DPS. But the main reason why you run this card is to pre-fire, because pre-firing is very important with Zhin. If you're not doing anything, you always want to pre-fire. You don't want to pre-fire if you're in front of people, if you're in the battlefield. Why? Because it reduces your DPS. That's the short answer. But if you're flanking, you're walking around, if you're picking corners, you should always pre-fire. Why? Because it makes you take one less shot, basically to kill anything if you encounter someone. Also, look at this. You can hold it a bit before firing the third shot. If you hold it for too long, resets the sequence again. So pre-firing without this card is fine. Like it's doable. This card just makes your life easier, because pre-firing with Zhin is so natural. It's so important to pre-fire with Zhin, because third hit really makes a difference in initiating brawls. Still, I don't think this card is worth running. Infamy. This card would be a decent filler, but this card exists. I will touch in a bit. Heartless. This card exists. Dragon Oil. This card exists. The Viciousness. Okay. So I'm telling you right now, this is Zhin's second best card, and it is really being slept on. It has a very low pick rate, and I don't know why. I seriously don't know why. I don't know if this is a bias thing, because I don't think it is. With these 4 cards, you're playing a defensive style of Zhin. You're playing a passive one. With these 4 cards, you're playing an aggressive one. And the difference is, this one makes you do less damage. This one makes you do more damage. That's the short answer. This card says reduce the cooldown of counter by 15% after successfully hitting an enemy with counter. What is 15%, you might ask? 1.05 seconds. That's what it is. If you run this at 5, it is a counter every 1.75 seconds. So running this at 5 is pretty good. Now Viciousness basically allows you to do 200 more damage for X amount of seconds, considering you put this card at X amount of points. The base cooldown is 7 seconds. If you put this at 5, not saying you have to. There's decks that you can definitely run a lower amount of points into Viciousness. But let's say you run 5. You basically have a 2000 damage amp for each 1.75 seconds you use it. That's pretty nuts. As you can see, 5 hits, running vanilla Zhin, not countering between, takes 5 hits, yeah. If you put a counter in between, it takes 5 hits still. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and pick Yomi. And as you can see, 4 hits. It takes 4 hits. It's not about the counter damage amp being ridiculously OP. It's still 200 damage. That's not nothing you can say it's great, but it's good. Yomi isn't great either. It's good, but if you combine both of them, you're basically having 350 more damage every true combo, which is about 3 seconds each. And yeah, as you can see, it takes 1 less hit to kill everything, 2 less hits to kill everything, up to 3, 4, 5 less hits to kill everything if you combine both of these damage champs. This isn't far off from benefits such as Cat Burglar, Bounce House, basically good talents that have a similar damage champ effect. It also comes with added benefits by comboing this with the rest of his cards. You know, Master Stance, Footwork, Perfect Block, all of his counter cards synergizes so well together. It's insane. This is me telling you to play this on ranked. I can see an argument on why this could be fully countered by a full team of GMs, by a full team of PPC players, but still, it's not real either, because people will shoot your counter. People with fast fire rates like Victor, like Zhin, will end up shooting it by accident. It's like saying no one ever shoots Terminus, no one ever shoots Andraxus, no one ever shoots Moji. It just happens. It is inhumanly possible to react. This isn't retaliation. Yeah, retaliation was you committing to getting people's faces and either being shot or not being shot. That was retaliation. A talent that was reliant on how good your opponents were. This is not retaliation, because you need 1 hit. And that's it. You need 1 hit and you get all your CDs back and you can keep going. With this deck, you can use your movement ability. If you commit to it, even if you don't hit your counter, you still get the speed buff to retreat behind a corner. So it's not like you're committing suicide by wasting it and relying on hitting a counter because of how good Footwork is. Perfect Block, this card is pretty good and outshines this one. Why? If you hit 2 counters, you get the same value as this, even if you're under cauterized 3, and you sometimes hit even 3 to 4 to 5 counters in the same brawl, which is pretty good. And this card is just extremely good. Early game, this card rocks, keeps you top, gives you that forgiving edge, a little boost, 100 per level. It's pretty insane. Also versus lower projectile comps, other times you need more sustain. I actually have these same 5 cards with different variations depending if I'm gonna be top. This is the gold standard if you have a good support to keep you safe. This one is a bit more sustainy. You sacrifice points in CD reduction, but it's still doable because you stall with Footwork. You stall time with Footwork, strafing left and right while you get the world back. These are meme decks. These two, this one and this one. Don't take them seriously. Master Stance, this card is like this one, slightly worse by 0.5 seconds, slightly less good. It's also less good because I always almost run 3 points on this card because 4 is just overkill. I mean, 4 is okay, 5 is definitely overkill because there's no point in getting it at 4. If you have all CDs at all time, there's no point in having them at all times because you can stall with this and shoot to get your DPS up. There's no point in whirling all the time, but still 3 points is really necessary to keep the combo going. Again, you don't depend on this. You don't depend on getting a kill. All these cards synergize really well together. If you don't hit your counter, you still get this and this, which are good enough in my opinion to make it decent to stall time if you don't get this and this back. Footwork, like I said, Viciousness is his second best card because it is reliant in the kind of comps you're facing, because believe me, it is humanly impossible to react to this in time if you're playing versus rapid fire champs. But yeah, Footwork is just consistent, is just really freaking good. Having this every 1.75 seconds is insane. Even if you run this lower, you still get a pretty nice buff. I've seen some people run this higher and run this lower, but again, it's just a preference thing. And yeah, that's basically all the cards. You can copy my loadouts if you want. This is not an attack to pro players. I can definitely see why they keep running the below cards, because it is just safer, and in PPC I guess they want to go safer. But again, it's really bad for the game, in my opinion. Going below Zhin is terrible for the character for two reasons. One, it makes the skill floor decrease significantly more. Vanilla Zhin can still work. Yes, even if you play default loadouts, even if you play with the worst talent with Smolder, you can still perform well on Zhin. I sincerely think these 5 cards are the heart and soul of Zhin right now. If you play these cards, you don't like experimenting with these 4, or you just think they are meme cards that are not reliable. But yeah, that's pretty much my whole ranting. Again, this card I really think needs to be deleted, because it is the one thing that people still use and keeps them from experimenting with this 4. Also, something I'm really pissed about, Fan the Flames is the reason, and I believe is the reason why this talent was nerfed. The talent that I would argue was better than Yomi. Now it's terrible. This talent will never be buffed as long as Fan the Flames exists, and that's a pretty sad thing, because Yomi is a very lame talent. It's very lame, but again, synergizes really well with the deck I'm sharing with you today. These two do not synergize at all, like at all. For item choices, you know the deal. Cauterize, Haven, Chronos gets diminishing returns. If you don't hit your counter, if you have Chronos 2, you get 5.5 seconds, I believe, of counter reduction, which is nice. It's really hard for me to commit with this, because yeah, you're just, there are better items to get with him, in my opinion. Moral boost can be nice. You don't get diminishing returns, but again, this would be something I would run in heavy reliant maps on your ult to use as vertical mobility, and even then it's okay, I guess. Master Riding is pretty good. Nimble gets affected by diminishing returns unless you're running footwork at a very low level. Life is terrible. Kill to heal terrible unless you're playing TDM or Onslaught, or your healer is doing nothing. Veteran, terrible. Rejuvenates, good with some people, because it basically allows you to pick and get it back into combat faster. You don't always need to go Cauterize. Zhin is a good Cauterizer, but not great. It's an okay Cauterizer. You can definitely sometimes go one of these items and rush all the way. It's not a crazy idea. You can win duels by just rushing these 2 items if you feel like you have in your team already 2 to 3 solid enough Cauterizers. Again, it's a gamble if you face 1v1 versus someone like Buck, a very high sustainer, but still, it's not something crazy. Wrecker and Bulldozer are 2 very weak items right now, but still important versus some champions and versus some comps. Defense, it's terrible. No, it's not terrible. Let me tell you, Defense 1 is actually really solid on Zhin. Why? Because you're getting Malice 2 for 250 credits. Now, is that investment worth it? I won't answer that, because I'm not sure either. Just leaving it out there, level 1 would be pretty nice as a filler. Yeah, have fun, enjoy Paladins, and leave a comment if you think there's something I'm missing, or you think I'm biased and I suck at this game.